Welcome to this week's episode of Analyzing Chazal. Before we start, I just want to note that we added a new feature, which is a hint to the answer, which you can use to get your children more involved in the Dvar Torah at the Shabbos table. Okay, here we go. This week we're going to be analyzing the commentary of the Or HaChaim HaKadosh on this week's Parsha Shmiini. Let's go to the Pasuk. The Pasuk in Perek Tes, Pasuk Aleph, says the following: Vayihi bayom hashmini kara Moshe la'Aaron u'levanav u'leziknei Yisrael. It was on the 8th day Moshe called to Aaron and his sons and to all the elders of Bnei Yisrael. The Or HaChaim. Ve'ulai nira od ki atzar sheyagid ha'kosav hu shel Moshe. Shemuzkar ki ra gedulaso ugedulas zaro biyad Aaron uvanov. Maybe you can say that the pain that the pasuk is discussing is the pain of Moshe, who saw his honor and the honor of his sons in the hands of Aaron and his sons. The explanation of the Or HaChaim. The Or HaChaim is explaining the reason that the Torah uses the word vayihi, which is a language the Torah uses to describe an event of suffering, when this was a time of great joy for Bnei Israel. In this case, the suffering the Torah is hinting to is the suffering that Moshe felt when seeing the fact that he and his descendants lost out having the kahuna, and instead that merit went to Aaron and his children. The type of question we'll be using is that the commentary seems to be giving us an explanation for something that does not really answer the question. The hint. Look at the overall picture. Is this a happy or a sad time? Okay, here's the question. The question is that the Or HaChaim is telling us that the Torah is using a language of suffering, even though it is inherently a happy time for Bnei Israel, because of the suffering of Moshe that he lost the kahuna to Aaron. Is it possible that for the suffering of one person, which was not even a physical suffering, but an emotional one, and on Moshe's great level that suffering was relatively minimal, that Hashem will ignore the great joy of Bnei Israel to focus on the minimal suffering of one person? The answer, as we always say, the answer comes from within the question, which was, is it possible that Hashem would focus on the minimal suffering of an individual at a time of great joy for Bnei Israel? The answer, of course, is yes, and the reason is that we do not understand how great the love Hashem has for each one of us, that even the minimal suffering of one Jew causes tremendous suffering for Hashem. And even if there is great joy among the rest of Bnei Israel, the focus of Hashem is on the pain of the suffering individual. The practical application. In our lives, there is unfortunately much suffering, whether in areas of parnasa and health, the war, etc. And our lives are, thank God, good. We, of course, have to thank Hashem for the tremendous good He gives us, but we must also put the suffering of others in the front of our minds, to daven for them and help them in other ways if we can, but never to say, all is good by me, so I do not have to think about the suffering of others. Have a wonderful Shabbos, and we'll see you next week for Parshas Tazria.